Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome to today's episode of the Law of Self-Defense. I am, of course, attorney Andrew Branca for the Law of Self-Defense. Thank you. Thank you all so very much. So today is a part 2 of 2 show where we continue to cover the civil complaint filed against Disney and Lucasfilm and Huckleberry by actress Gina Carano, who's claiming that she was wrongfully discharged, that Disney is wrongfully refusing to hire her for future work, and that she was subject to sex discrimination by Disney. And she's seeking what I'm sure will be many, many millions of dollars in compensation and punitive damages for these alleged offenses. So we read roughly the first half of the complaint, a little more than half, yesterday. Whoops. And I'll put a link in the description of today's show to yesterday's show for all of you, and I'll do the reverse too once this is over. A couple of questions did come up yesterday, and that is her apparent demand for a jury trial. So at the very end of the complaint, that's not what I wanted there. Let's try this again. Share this. So this is the suit, Gina Carano, plaintiff versus Walt Disney Company, Lucasfilm, and Huckleberry Industries. And at the very end, there's this plaintiff hereby demands a jury trial in this case. And somebody felt that that's pretty strong language. It's perfectly normal. It's always phrased that way. It's just how you request a jury trial in a civil matter. So nothing unusual about that. Also came up the question of, is this the evidence in the case? And the answer is no. So the complaint is not obliged to provide evidence. The complaint is merely obliged to state claims for which there is a cause of action. Now, you'll need evidence by the time you get to trial, and there'll be a jury to evaluate the credibility or lack of credibility of that evidence. But it's between the complaint and the trial that the evidence primarily gets created, and that's in the discovery process. So the suit is filed, Disney will file a response. Presumably, if the suit's moving forward, we'll have discovery, and then subpoenas will be issued for things like emails, cell phones, all kinds of stuff. Communications, people can be subpoenaed to be deposed under oath by the parties. And that's where the bulk of the evidence gets created in the case. Now, if witnesses testify at trial, that's also evidence that's being created. In a perfect trial, the only testimonial evidence created at trial is stuff that the lawyers would already have heard in deposition. So in a perfect trial, there are no surprises for the lawyers in terms of the evidence, in terms of the testimony. They're asking questions they've already asked and gotten answers from those witnesses before, and they're anticipating getting the same answers again. If they get different answers, well, then that witness can be impeached with the different answer they gave at their deposition. But for the lawyers, they should only be hearing stuff they've heard before. So their job is not to elicit new evidence at trial. It's to take the evidentiary building blocks that they already have and build them into a story for the jury at trial. Because, of course, for the jury, they're hearing this presumably for the first time. So yeah, there doesn't have to be evidence here, just claims. And these are just claims, right? So Disney will have an opportunity to respond to this complaint with its own narrative of not being at fault, presumably. So we are only hearing one side of the story here. We're hearing Gina Carano's side of the story. So that always sounds compelling, right? Until you hear the other side. So it'll be interesting to see how this progresses. I doubt I'll follow this suit very closely. There are others who are much more invested in Disney stuff than I am. In particular, Andrew Esquire, Legal Mindset, at Legal Mindset on Twitter, has been deep up to the neck covering Disney stuff. Their Reedy Creek property disputes with the state of Florida, their purported misinformation that they're providing to shareholders and investors. I know he covered their investor call yesterday on a live stream. So if you're super interested in stuff Disney, I would suggest that at Legal Mindset Andrew Esquire is the person to go for this. This particular filing was of interest to me because it involves cancel culture. And we're all vulnerable to cancel culture. And if we don't fight cancel culture, we're basically living in a gulag society where you say one thing that's not approved, political speech, and you're cast out of productive society. You can lose your job, lose future job opportunities, lose friends, lose everything, become basically estranged, an outcast from society. And we all should agree that's not a world any of us would want to live in. So that's my primary interest in covering this filing in particular. But we'll see how things develop, I suppose. So, of course, I'm not going to repeat everything we did yesterday. You'll have to go to part 1 of the show for that. Again, the link will be in the description. And with that, we'll jump into today's show. Here we go, I think. Let's see. And today's show is brought to us by our longtime partner, CCW Safe. Whoops, here we go. A provider of self-defense legal services. So if you're involved in a self-defense event, they promise to cover your legal expenses and provide a whole bunch of other benefits. If you remember at the time that you're compelled to use force in defense of yourself, your family, your property, there are a lot of companies out there these days that offer this kind of service. Some of them are, I think, underfunded. Some of them are just not credible anymore, given the way they've treated their members, failed to cover their members. CCW Safe is the one I trust. I'm personally a member of CCW Safe, have been for years. My wife is personally a member. I'm very familiar with the team over there. They're a great group of people. A lot of them are retired homicide detectives, other law enforcement. They essentially become your investigators, which is extremely helpful to have if you've been obliged, especially to use deadly force. And they have a vast quantity of resources to bring to your legal defense. We'd like to think that the amount of resources you can bring to your legal defense doesn't change the kind of justice you get, but it certainly does, I can tell you. So if you'd like to learn more about why I trust CCW Safe, just point your browser to lawofselfdefense.com/trust. There's a very short video there where I explain the details of all that. Plus, there's a discount code, 10% off, for when you decide to become a CCW Safe member like me. Again, lawofselfdefense.com/trust. Trust. All right, so here we continue with the complaint filed by Gina Carano against Disney, Lucasfilm, and Huckleberry. And by the way, it's kind of, as you would have seen yesterday, assuming you saw yesterday's show, it's kind of cleverly drafted, really. So, of course, this subhead here, Defendants Strike Again, is a play on the Star Wars movie, The Empire Strikes Back. Continuing now with the complaint. Even with Carano's star rising, defendants continue to harbor animosity against Carano for her political beliefs. On January 8th, 2021, Carano was inadvertently sent an email by Lynn Hale of Lucasfilm explaining that defendants were consumed with some on social media calling for Disney to fire Carano. They monitored a hashtag, meaning a string of related posts, calling on Disney to hashtag fire Gina Carano. Hale's email, by the way, these emails, this one was purportedly inadvertently sent to Carano. But now that the suit is filed, when discovery begins, Carano is going to have access to all those email servers, text messages, all that stuff. Hale's email was the most recent in a string of emails that began with Disney CEO Chapek's statement on the events of January 6th. This, of course, were the protests at the Capitol. There were significant backlash to Chapek's statements, including harsh criticism of Disney for doing business with China, given the country's extensive human rights abuses and internment camps for the indigenous Uyghur people. I don't know how to pronounce that. Sorry, folks. By the way, I believe if you were to ask Andrew Esquire, the legal mindset, who does this deep coverage of Disney, he would tell you that almost all of Disney's profitability is from China. That's where they're making their money. Continuing now. Yet very quickly, the focus of the emails turns to Carano as some on social media chose to insert calls to fire Carano in responses to Chapek's online statement. Rather than focus on the criticism of Disney's business dealings in China, Disney instead was going to prepare a report on Carano, which Hale recommended start by saying that she didn't do anything to support the riots on DC. Of course, Carano had nothing to do with the events of January 6th. It was apparent that Chapek and his team were looking for ways to deflect from his failed leadership as Disney CEO, a pattern that included his obsession with and ultimate termination of Carano, his subsequent failings on Disney's contract dispute with Scarlett Johansson in July 2021, and political missteps in his criticism of Florida's parental rights in education law. This is the grooming kids in schools law, all leading to his termination in November 2022. On January 12th, 2021, he's back, by the way, I believe. They put in a new CEO who lasted about a year and got rid of him and brought Bob Chapek back. I believe Chapek was on the shareholder call yesterday, doing a very poor job of communicating. If you look at Andrew Esquire's stuff, again, he's very critical of Disney generally and Chapek in particular. Continuing now. On January 12th, 2021, Carano posted an interview she gave where she was asked about the controversy surrounding her social media post. An interview, sorry, folks. An interview that clearly demonstrates that she was not seeking to denigrate anyone, but chose to speak up because there was a large group of people that were being silenced and that conversations were not happening, and because of her belief that discussion is good. She was not seeking a political platform, but believed that discussing issues makes everyone better. She also understands that simply speaking up made her a punching bag. Here's a tweet from Gina Carano, quote, "Hope you enjoy listening to this interview. With all the disinformation, it's nice to hear from someone's own mouth," close quote. And then there's a comment to that tweet that says, "Never explain yourself to the cancel culture. Stay strong in your conviction." I would agree with that. Never apologize to cancel culture. It doesn't do any good. They just redouble their efforts. When they see you bending the knee, they're vicious. Continuing now. All this occurred while Lucasfilm was publicly supporting Christina Ariel and her declaration that all white people are racist. That's a quote in there. Indeed, defendants even publicly claim that people should speak their mind based on their conscience. Of course, when Carano did so, defendants targeted her because her conscience did not align with their ideology. Here's a tweet from an account that's Star Wars. I guess it's the official Star Wars account, and it's quoting Martin Luther King Jr. Quote, "There comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe nor politic nor popular, but he must take it because conscience tells him it is right," close quote. On February 10th, 2021, Carano made the following post in light of the trending hashtag Fire Gina Carano to highlight the injustice of the mob seeking to destroy someone simply because of their political beliefs. And here's a Gina Carano tweet. Quote, "Jews were beaten in the streets, not by Nazi soldiers, but by their neighbors, even by children. Because history is edited, most people today don't realize that to get to the point where the Nazi soldiers could easily round up thousands of Jews, the government first made their own neighbors hate them simply for being Jews. How is that any different from hating someone for their political views?" Close quote. Carano made no mention of a political party or a particular point of view and compared no one or group of people to the Jewish people during the Holocaust. Rather, she noted the danger that arises when one point of view is singled out for harassment. Nevertheless, the apoplectic response from some on social media has been well documented and shows a gross overreaction and intentional smear campaign against Carano. Indeed, one analysis of the social media events of February 10th, 2021 concludes, quote, "Carano's contested post can be fairly critiqued as heavy-handed. Still, evidence has not come forth that Carano in any way emitted an iota of the hate or vitriol that was projected onto her by the persecution mob," close quote. Indeed, the Auschwitz Museum even notes that the persecution of the Jewish people began long before the concentration camps, a concept that defendants refused to acknowledge even as they twisted and misrepresented Carano's post. And there's a tweet here from the Auschwitz Museum. I'm not going to read it in the interest of time, but you can pause and read it. It was just on the screen. Even Carano's male co-star, the late Carl Weathers, posted the exact same message, but no action was taken against him, nor was Weathers accused by defendants of denigrating people based on their culture and religious identity. And here's a Carl Weathers tweet, quote, "Who gets to decide what is appropriate for me or my children to read? The Nazis knew how to both control and to eradicate. Interesting playbook to emulate. What's next? Who's next?" Close quote. And then he reposted someone else's tweet. It looks like it might be Barbara Hershey. Quote, "It didn't start with gas chambers. It started with one party controlling the media, one party controlling the message, one party deciding what is truth, one party censoring speech and silencing opposition, one party dividing citizens into us and them and calling in their supporters to harass them. It started when good people turned a blind eye and let it happen." Close quote. Defendants' disparate treatment of Weathers further demonstrates their discrimination against Carano on the basis of her sex and or political beliefs. Indeed, when he made the same generic statement, Weathers' comments were interpreted to attack Republicans, so he was given a pass by defendants. Yet defendants, rather than come to Carano's defense, proved her point by joining the unhinged mob and not just terminating Carano for the views expressed in her post, but accusing her of the very things she fought against, the denigration of other people. Contrary to the defendant's statement, at no point was Carano, quote, "denigrating people based on their cultural and religious identities," close quote, as Lucasfilm claimed. Rather, she was doing just the opposite, opposing such denigration and targeting of people just because they hold different beliefs. In fact, Carano constantly called for respect and decency when speaking with people, and for respect and decency to be shown, as she did, when discussing important public issues. She has always held herself out as a person of integrity, and those she worked with can attest to this. She always treated everyone she met with kindness and compassion, as the Mandalorian staff can confirm. Nothing could be more inclusive or representative of the values Chapek claims defendants stand for. Defendants did not even have the courtesy to inform Carano of her termination in person before announcing it to the press. Ironically, Carano first learned of her termination by reading about it on social media. As a result of defendant's statement, Carano was inundated with stalkers and media hounding her at home. It became so bad that she justifiably feared for her personal safety. In addition to being terminated from her role on The Mandalorian, defendants canceled production of Rangers of the New Republic, refusing to hire her even though she had been told the role was hers. Further, prior to her termination, Carano had been told by Jon Favreau she was to be part of a series of new Star Wars movies based on the various Star Wars Disney Plus series to be released in theaters in the near future, a group of movies which includes the recently announced movie based on The Mandalorian. To this day, when someone wishes to attack Carano's appearance in any event, they frequently cite defendant's statement at the time of her termination and repeat the false accusation that Carano, quote, "denigrated people based on their cultural and religious identities," close quote. Such decisions, including the harassment, targeting, termination, and post-termination smear campaign, were made with the knowledge and approval of those who qualified as an officer, director, or managing agent of each defendant. Next subsection, defendant's post-termination smear campaign. By way of example of the post-termination smear campaign, prior to her termination in November 2020, Carano filmed an episode of Running Wild with Bear Grylls, an adventure program that aired on Nat Geo, owned by Disney. Following her termination, Disney surreptitiously removed the episode of Running Wild that showcased Carano from the show's scheduled lineup, all in an effort to malign Carano and deny viewers the ability to see who she really is. After protests from fans and intervention by Bear Grylls to have the episode run as scheduled, Disney did show the episode with Carano on May 10th, 2021. However, even though Disney ultimately aired the Running Wild episode with Carano, they removed all mention of her name or likeness in any promotional material or even listings of the episode. Next subsection, the aftermath of defendants' actions. Based on defendants' termination of Carano and their public statements regarding her, Carano's agent, United Artists, and her entertainment attorney dropped her as a client. Neither provided her any explanation. Discovery may reveal that this occurred at the express or implicit direction of defendants. So all these people are going to be deposed, obviously. Her lawyer, her agent, everyone possibly involved with any of this at Disney, Lucasfilm, or Huckleberry will be deposed under oath. The numerous opportunities Carano had because of her role in The Mandalorian, including invitations to read for new movies, invitations to attend high-profile events, and even opportunities to promote her work, immediately stopped after defendants' public statements regarding her. Not hard to understand, right? I mean, Disney's giant. Everybody wants to work for Disney. And you certainly don't want Disney mad at you because purportedly that this is what happens to you. Even so, in October 2021, one of Carano's co-stars, Giancarlo Esposito, was asked, quote, "In The Mandalorian, who is your favorite coworker to work with?" Close quote. To which he replied, quote, "My goodness, okay, so you're asking me for one. Yeah, I have to say, and this may be, well, okay, I'll say it without hesitation, Gina Carano." Close quote. In September 2021, another co-star, Emily Swallow, described Carano as follows, quote, "All I can say is that Gina, and working with her personally, what impressed me about her from the beginning is that she is so interested in other people's opinions and is so welcoming of other people's opinions. She wants to have a genuine dialogue. She's just like that in her day-to-day life. On set, she's more curious about other people. She's very giving. She's very gracious." Close quote. Another of Carano's co-stars, Bill Burr, this would be the comedian who was on The Mandalorian, came to her defense after her termination saying the following, quote, "She was an absolute sweetheart, super nice person." Close quote. Even Forbes found defendants' justification for Carano's termination baffling and unjustified, noting that 72% of people surveyed disapproved of Carano's termination when they saw the actual post that apparently prompted defendants' decision, because her post noted the dangers of targeting people for their beliefs. Next subsection, social media post from Carano's co-stars. This is going to be to show that the co-stars, presumably male, were posting, political beliefs on social media, but were not held accountable in the same manner. Certainly not termination. That Gina Carano was held, and therefore there's sex discrimination occurring here. Carano respects the rights of her co-stars to express their views on social media, even if they differ from her own, and she remains personally fond of each of them. However, defendants' treatment of Carano stands in stark contrast to defendants' embrace of her male co-stars and other male employees. So the following examples are provided to demonstrate the discriminatory treatment Carano endured at the hands of the defendants. One of Carano's co-stars was Pedro Pascal, a male actor who played the role of the Mandalorian. Pascal was active on social media, often expressing his view on the Black Lives Matter movement, LGBTQ plus rights, protests for abortion rights, and the 2020 election. For example, on September 28, 2015, Pascal made the following post drawing a clear distinction between himself and quote-unquote conservatives. Here's a tweet from Pedro Pascal, quote, "Conservatives used gossip columns and headlines to manipulate city politics in the 40s, and it worked. Let's do better than them." Close quote. On August 16th, 2017, Pascal made the following post comparing President Donald Trump to Hitler. And it's, for those on the podcast, this is a The written numerals 45 turned on an angle so it looks like a swastika with a red circle with a line going through it. 45, of course, referring to President Trump. The 2017 post was not the only time Pascal compared President Trump and those who voted for him to Nazis. On June 20th, 2018, Pascal compared the United States' response to those entering the country illegally to the concentration camps of Nazi Germany in the following post. And it's just two pictures. One is concentration camp victims behind barbed wire, labeled Germany 1944, and then one of those kids in cages pictures, labeled America 2018. And again, on November 7th, 2020, Pascal made the following post, only to delete it shortly thereafter. So the post was, losers in 1865, and there's a Confederate flag. Losers in 1945, and there's a Nazi flag. Losers in 2020, and there's a MAGA cap. That's Pascal's post. Continuing now with the complaint. Defendants did not comment on, let alone condemn, Pascal's social media comments. On June 27th, 2020, Pascal posted two Disney-owned Muppet characters, Bert and Ernie, as activists waving a transgender and LGBTQ plus pride flag and promoting Black Lives Matters and defund the police. And there's the just described cartoon image is presented here. Upon information and belief, Pascal was not disciplined, required to review documentaries on any of these topics, or speak to individuals with contrary points of view, or pressured to apologize for any of his posts. His employment was not terminated, and defendants made no public statements about his social media posts, much less refer to them as abhorrent. Likewise, Star Wars star Mark Hamill posted his comparison of Americans who support President Trump with Nazis in his September 18th, 2022 post. And this is a picture of, I guess, a Trump rally, and Mark Hamill's comment is, I do not see a thing. Nazi, N-A-Z-I. This, of course, is nothing new for Hamill, who from 2016 described Donald Trump as Vladimir Putin's puppet and the KKK's candidate. Hamill has gone so far as to compare President Trump to the Third Reich without a word of protest from defendants. Defendants did not comment on, let alone publicly condemn, Hamill's social media comments. And unlike Carano, when Hamill was accused of liking a transphobic tweet, his explanation was accepted by defendants without question. And I guess he had liked a tweet from J.K. Rowling, who's been similarly attacked as Gina Carano. Of course, J.K. Rowling has several lifetimes of assets and resources, so she's basically beyond being canceled. That's certainly not true of Gina Carano. Continuing with the complaint, no action was taken against Hamill. On the contrary, he was allowed an appearance in the closing episode of the second season of The Mandalorian. Defendants even rehired Guardians of the Galaxy director James Gunn, a male, in 2019 after terminating him in 2018 for social media posts years earlier, such as, quote, I like when little boys touch me in my silly place, close quote. And quote, the best thing about being raped is when you're done being raped and it's like, woo, this feels great, not being raped, close quote. And quote, the Expendables were so manly, I effed the shit out of the little pussy boy next to me. The boys are back in town, close quote. And that's all the body of the complaint. So yesterday, I actually started at the end of the complaint with these claims for relief. I'm not going to go over them in detail again, but there's basically three. One is wrongful discharge under the California Labor Code for political beliefs. The second is, again, wrongful discharge and refusal to hire for future work under California Labor Code. And the last is sex discrimination under California Government Code, Section 12940. And I did notice there was an appendix. So let's take a quick scroll for this. And what do they want? They want money, damages, punitive damages. They say they want reinstatement, but I don't believe anyone would think that would be realistic. So I'm sure they'll just settle for that. It's just a lever for the defense to pull to get more money. There's the lawyers. demand for a jury trial, and exhibits. So they do provide some evidence. Let's see. Oh, just this one. So one of the rules in civil suits is the doctrine that before you can go to court, if the state has set up administrative procedures, non-court procedures for redressing things like discrimination, you're required to go through that process, the administrative process, without first jumping to court. So you have to do the administrative relief before you can get the judicial relief. And this is just a letter from the Civil Rights Department, state of California, that they, I guess Gina Carano had started the administrative process and had received from them a right to sue notice, which is essentially them saying, all right, well, we've completed the administrative process to no effect, no relief. So now you're allowed to proceed to a civil court. That's the one exhibit they attach. So it's not evidence of any of the claims in the complaint. But of course, there doesn't have to be any claims in the complaint. I mean, evidence in the complaint. There has to be claims in the complaint, of course. The evidence comes later. The evidence comes in the form of the discovery. Okay, so now I'm going to turn to the Q&A. Now, normally at this stage of the show, we would cut off the live stream and just answer questions from Law of Self-Defense members. I'm still only going to answer questions from Law of Self-Defense members, but I'll keep the open access streams going. So if you're on YouTube or Twitter or Rumble, we're not ending the stream here for you. You're going to stay with us to the end of the show. But the questions I'll address that I'll look at and comments will only be from our Law of Self-Defense members. The good news is that it's dirt cheap to be a Law of Self-Defense member. You can do it for 99 cents right now. 99 cents gets you a 2-week trial membership, unlimited access to all our members' comments, all the stuff that's normally not open access. Try it out for 2 weeks for 99 cents. 99 cents, folks. And if you stay a member after the 2-week trial, it's still dirt cheap. It's only about 30 cents a day, less than $10 a month to be a Law of Self-Defense member. Part of that is you get transcripts of every show that you can download for your records, should you ever need the knowledge you acquire here for evidence in a use of force trial that you find yourself in. You also get access to the Q&A chat on our member dashboard, which is where we address questions and comments, and much more. For 99 cents, you can't go wrong. You can try it right now. Just open up another tab in your browser, lawofselfdefense.com/trial, sign up for 99 cents, and you'll have member access and instructions emailed to you immediately on how to take advantage of all that. lawofselfdefense.com/trial, folks. All right, let's see what we have. Oh, I should mention, actually, I want to do this too. So tomorrow's show is going to be on this crazy Hawaii State Supreme Court decision that just came out yesterday. I believe it was released, where Hawaii Supreme Court basically tells the Supreme Court of the United States to go F itself in terms of the Second Amendment. It even says that aloha spirit, whatever that is more substantive Second Amendment jurisprudence than anything the Supreme Court has to say. If that sounds like the Hawaii Supreme Court is an open rebellion against the Supreme Court of the United States, well, I would concur. That's what it sounds like to me. So we're going to read through that decision tomorrow at our usual time, noon Eastern time. If you're on our email list, you'll get an email notifying you of that. So that should be great fun. So look forward to that tomorrow, Friday, February 9th. Okay. Back to the Q&A, and that's how you can sign up as a member again. lawofselfdefense.com/trial. Let's see. Yep, it's already mentioned in the comments. Anyone see the Second Amendment decision from Hawaii Supreme Court? Yeah, I'm going to cover that tomorrow, folks. Let's see. Okay. Well, not much comments. Well, our members are basically primarily interested, of course, in use of force law, Second Amendment law type stuff, not so much Gina Carano, I would imagine. So that doesn't surprise me. Maybe I will take a look at the, let's see what we got on YouTube. Let's see. I got to remind myself how to do this again. If it's crazy, let's see. Okay, let's see. Yeah, I think Discovery should be pretty interesting. The depositions too. Yeah, I have to say, so the complaint feels soft to me. Right? It's not an obvious win to me. And of course, Disney has a lot of resources to bring to this fight. Now, apparently, Gina has a lot of resources, not of her own, but she's being backed by Elon Musk in this civil suit against Disney. And you know how Elon Musk feels about Disney and Bob Chapek. That famous clip where he's saying, "Go F yourself," to Bob Chapek while being interviewed on a stage someplace. But if she wins on the merits, yeah, the damages could be many, many millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars, once you throw in the punitive damages as well. You almost be certainly looking at something on the order of 15 or 20 million dollars in purely compensatory damages, and then punitive damages against a $1 billion company like Disney could be a multiple of that. Let's see. Oh, that was for Bob Iger. Sorry, I confused the Bobs. I'm not that big a Disney aficionado myself. And let's see if there's any more comments. All right, I think that's everything. All right, folks. Well, a concise show today. That's always nice to have. And again, tomorrow we'll be covering this Hawaii decision. So look for that show. It'll be noon Eastern time tomorrow, Friday, February 9th. And I'll read through the whole decision. And I have some insight. So I don't claim a great deal of Second Amendment law expertise myself, but a friend of ours is Costas Moros, who's a California attorney who does have genuine insight. Now, he won't be joining the show personally, but I've kind of folded in the insight he's already shared on Twitter into my reading of the decision. So we'll get to enjoy his insights as well. And of course, that's with his permission. He's well aware I'm doing that. And I encourage you to follow him over on Twitter. He's a great follower. He's been on the show as a guest before. Very, very high level of expertise on Second Amendment law. All right, folks. So with that out of the way, I'll just remind all of you that if you carry a gun, so you're hard to kill, that's why I carry a gun, so I'm hard to kill, so my family is hard to kill, then you also owe it to yourself and your family to make sure you know the law, so you're hard to convict as well. Until next time, I remain attorney Andrew Branker for Law Self-Defense. Stay safe.